I believe that boldness is a skill. It's not something you have to be born with, and you can work on it and harness it and get good at it. And to me, boldness is the secret sauce to success, both professionally and personally. And it's way more important than any other quality or skill to actually get to the next level and elevate.
Welcome, my guest, Jennifer Cohen. Jennifer is an entrepreneur, brand strategist, podcaster, and educator. Her world-famous clientele includes Hollywood celebrities, Olympic athletes, blockbuster recording artists, top CEOs, and more. She's the author of 3 books in the fitness, wellness, and health habits space, and has sold her companies for millions of dollars and has appeared on major network shows. On her top-rated Habits and Hustle podcast, Jennifer interviews thought leaders and business luminaries such as Mark Cuban, Bobbi Brown, Tony Robbins, and celebrities like Dennis Rodman, Chelsea Handler, and Matthew McConaughey. In today's episode, we welcome her newest book, Bigger, Better, Bolder, Live the Life You Want, Not the Life You Get. I am so happy to welcome on Jen Cohen back on the podcast. Your episode, I think it was almost 2 years ago, maybe give or take, maybe a year and a half. And your episode just lit up the podcast.
Really?
Yes, it did super well. And I'm not surprised because you just share authentically your knowledge and your expertise, and you just show up and just provide so much value. So I know this episode is going to be absolute fire as well. So thank you for being back on.
Absolutely. I hope I won't disappoint you or your audience. My God, after that,
please.
you'll have 2 downloads because of it.
No, definitely not. Oh my gosh. So I actually just was at Jen Cohen's book launch at Barnes & Noble at the Grove, and it was so much fun. Yes, here's the book, Better or Bigger, Better, and Bolder. Live the life you want, not the life you get. So this is her newest book, and oh my goodness, I started to dive into it and just learning everything you share today. It's so powerful. And it's just reminding myself, to really just live a bold, bigger life, step into the arena basically. And that's what this episode is going to be about, is really going to challenge you and empower you to really show up in your life and create the life you want. That's really what it's about. And you are such an example of that. So in that room at Barnes & Noble, you were having a discussion with your guests that have led their life boldly in their own pursuits and created massive success along the way. And so I'm kind of curious, what do you feel is the common characteristics or similarities to people that live a bold life?
I think boldness can mean different things to different people, but essentially when I say boldness, I mean going for it. Kind of not being, don't let your self-doubt or your insecurity because you're not perfect at doing something stop you from starting. And that's the first part. The second part is, I think a lot of us we stop before we start because we have so many insecurity, self-doubt, or we're afraid of rejection or failure or all these things that kind of don't even allow us to even self-actualize. But if we can let go of that and not overthink, our trajectory and our lives open up in such a big, positive, better way that is actually closer to what you really want and being more authentic to you. And I really believe that this is the key. And this is why I wrote the book. And the book is Bigger, Better, Bolder, because sometimes people get confused with the name. But I believe that boldness is a skill. It's not something you have to be born with. And you can work on it and harness it and get good at it. And to me, boldness is the secret sauce to success, both professionally and personally. And it's way more important than any other quality or skill to actually get to the next level and elevate.
Yeah. And I remember you sharing in the book, because I've kind of read through some of it. You say that even if you don't have the belief that you are bold, is to believe you are bold anyways. And I think so often I've been living with this like mantra the last year, is just saying yes to anything that evolves me in the direction I want to go. And I think so many people, like you said, we get into this limitation spiral, and it's so easy to just like spiral downhill with all these limitations that come on that we inflict on ourselves, afraid of failure, afraid of success, afraid of not doing it perfect the first time. But the true, like the true essence of this is we must fail to succeed, really.
Absolutely. And I think that we get into, we also are our own worst enemies. And I think that it's not so much what goes on the outside, it's more where we are, right? Because it's very easy for us to think of like, oh, we're not talented enough. We're not smart enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not this or that enough. And that to me, it's just a recipe for disaster. And then we don't do anything. And then we just kind of acquiesce to what's in front of us and live this life that's just kind of like, good enough. And it's because it was available. So the whole idea is that, this is a big mantra of mine, is, life is out there for you you've got to create the life you want, not just kind of accept the life you get. And that means being deliberate with what you're doing and what your choices are, and going for it, because action begets more action. It's momentum based, right? Like something in motion stays in motion. And the truth of the matter is, I don't want people to like leave this podcast or this conversation and think to themselves, well, I'm not saying that everybody's going to get that exact goal that they put out there, or they're going to become an instant overnight success by just going for it. Absolutely not. The truth of the matter is, most of the things you probably won't end up getting. But I will promise one thing, that you may not get that exact thing, but another opportunity will present itself that you never even knew existed, by just going down the path and like going through the process, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and you find out so many different opportunities and things while you're like in the motion, while you're in it, while you're doing something. But something stagnant stays stagnant. You're not going to get anywhere if you just sit around and ruminate in your head and go down that spiral loop of why not, and why can't it, and why you're not good enough. And I mean, most of the people in the world that we see right now are barely even mediocre, and they're crushing it, right? But they had the belief in themselves, like, why not me? What's the worst that can happen? And you have to adopt that to get to the next place and to succeed.
Yeah, you share in the book also that choose a destination, not a direction. Or sorry, choose a direction, not a destination. I think this is really key, and I think this is powerful to mention, because a lot of people get fixated, like, I want to manifest this, like this is exactly what I want, and they get tied up on that idea, like, oh, I have the ability to manifest, so let me do all these things. But then they block themselves from actually the real gifts to reveal itself. And maybe I should go this direction. Maybe I should shift this way. So I think that's really important that you mentioned that in the book. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah. And I also want to say something which you may not love, but to me, manifestation is a very arbitrary thing, right? It's an arbitrary word. Like, to me, you can think and visualize all you want, but if you're not acting and executing, it doesn't matter, right? Dreams are only dreams, right? Dreams and goals dreams stay dreams unless you do the work to get them to reality. So that's the first part. And the only way to create something that you visualize and really see yourself doing is to go down a direction. And so to me, why I say that is, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly what it is that you need to do or what you want to do. You just have to have a generalized area of interest, and then start walking down that direction and see what happens. Like my whole life in my world, it's been a very zigzaggedy. It looks like it's so chaotic. It looks like a Rorschach test at best. I'm in this industry. I was in the music world, and then I'm in the sports world, and then I'm in the health and fitness space, and now I'm in the personal development space. Like, it's very messy and weird looking if you were to look from the outside, right? But I literally just, what I did, and is that like I went down a direction where I really kind of, it resonated and it felt real, and I kind of just saw what happened. Like, I created a fitness app which got sold, and I sold it to Weight Watchers, not because I knew anything about the technology world, but I really love fitness. And I'm like, you know what? There's a need for something. I don't see this type of app in fitness. I want to create it. And I was pretty naive at how much work goes into it, right? But that naivety was a real superpower and a strength, because sometimes when you have too much information and you know too much, you end up talking yourself out of something that you otherwise would have been good at, or you think of like why everything can go wrong. But when you don't know anything and you kind of like go into it kind of blindly, it's amazing how like you figure things out and do things different and disrupt by that very nature. So for me, why I'm saying this is that you don't have to have all the answers. And in fact, the less you know, sometimes the better it works out for you.
And I'm sure that's very like contradicting to what a lot of people think, which is really amazing about the message you're sharing, because I think so many people get hung up on this idea of doing things perfectly the first time. Like, I'm sure when you started your podcast, you were not like, you were probably so confused, like, what mic do I get? What technology and
I
all
still
these things,
am.
like, but it's like, that's what's amazing, is you're still in the arena, right? You're still doing it, and you have a killer successful podcast. You're able to have the top leaders on your podcast. But the reason is because you are, number one, just stepping forward regardless, not needing to know everything, and just learning along the way. And I think what's really powerful is this whole idea is a lot of people are afraid to ask for what they want. And I think this is one of your big things that really pivoted your life, is that the common thread between everything you've done is you've gone after what you wanted. And I think a lot of people, and I know you say you're not anything special, you're just an ordinary girl, and you just moved to LA and all these things happened, but the common thread is you went after it. And I think a lot of people are held back by, as we talked about, the limitations. So what would you say, like, what has made you different than the normal person that doesn't achieve all that they desire or want in their life?
Well, I think you said it, you nailed it, which is, I mean, I am just the everyday girl. I mean, there's nothing extra special about me or extraordinary. Like, believe me, I know very little about most things. And I don't think I am extraordinary in any way. But what makes me maybe stand out and thrive maybe more than the next person is that I go after something unapologetically, even when I don't know anything or belong. I put myself in places where I don't belong all the time. And that's a piece of, that's a thing that I want people to start doing, is that you should be going to places where you don't belong. You should be asking questions to people that you don't think you should, like you think that you shouldn't be speaking with. That's how you learn. That curiosity is the gateway to communication, opportunity, and a lot of the one superpower, if I had anything besides, of course, being bold, was that it was a very like a sister to boldness is curiosity. And when you are obsessively curious and coming from something with a really good intention of authenticity, opportunities open up to you. So that's really the beginning. Like, I mean, I had no business doing, like I said, the fitness app, because it was, I mean, I know nothing about technology. Look what I'm using for your podcast. Like, I've been doing a podcast for 3 years, and I'm still using this Apple headset that when I go on people's virtual podcasts, because mine's mostly in person, and I show up with these, they're like, don't, like, how are you wearing this? Like, aren't you embarrassed? And no, I'm not embarrassed, because I'm comfortable with the things that I'm just not great at, and being who I am,
Yeah.
which is another piece of it, right? Like, I think people have to become comfortable with where they are and who they are, and not care so much what other people think, because the truth is most people aren't really paying that much attention. And the other thing is, it's like lean into what you're good at and go really hard in there. And then you'll find ways to kind of balance out your weaknesses. And the podcast that I have wasn't even supposed to be a podcast. That podcast, Erica, was sold as a TV show to NBC. And it wasn't called Habits and Hustle. It was called Game Changers. And I thought that was going to be the next, trajectory or thing in my life that I was pursuing. And then when I did the deal, I thought, oh my God, it's so exciting and blah, blah, blah. And then 2 months turned into 6 months, that turned into a year. And I was still waiting to figure out with the network what was happening. We couldn't agree on like what kind of guests. We couldn't agree on like when to, this thing, that thing. And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let somebody else or some external force define my destiny and kind of basically write my story. And I took the ownership back, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just do a podcast. I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound as maybe exciting or as elaborate as a network TV show, but at least I'm in control and I can actually do something versus sitting in purgatory waiting for executives at a network to tell me if I should, which way to go and when I'm doing something. And I knew nothing about podcasts, basically. Like, I barely still do. I know how to do a couple things, but I just decided that I'm going to do it. And then I found people who were really good in post-production, who were really good in technology, in podcasting, right? Yeah. And I partnered with them, and I made a deal with them to do this podcast. And then I just started. And then as I was doing it, I got more information. I learned more. I got better at it. And that's what happened. I literally knew absolutely zilch about podcasts. I also thought the podcast space at the time, which was now almost 3 years ago, was totally saturated. Like, they need a new podcast, like a hole in the head. But I didn't let that stop me. Like, even though I thought that, because it was my brain, my overthinking brain, because I still have to work on it like everybody else, I wouldn't allow that thought to stop and limit me from going after it regardless. So I say, do it anyway, even if you don't want to, even if you think you're not good enough, even if you think you're not, smart enough, still do it.
Amen, sister. It's funny when you're talking about your headphones that you're just using that. The thing is, with that comes resourcefulness. It's like, oh, I don't know what mic to buy or this, that, and the other, but I know I have this and it works and it sounds good. So, hey, I could roll with this. So I think that, like, eliminating those obstacles that might be like stopping you from doing the darn thing. And it's so important to, I think what's so important about saying yes before you're ready is once you say yes, you're, number one, making a commitment to yourself and hopefully other people. And so that holds you accountable. And with that, at least it's challenging you to keep your word and to follow through. And with that, you'll take more action and be consistent and create that momentum to then figure it all out. Right. So that's what's like, I think that's with being bold is stepping forward regardless of your fears or your limitations or not being ready, not being perfect, and just figuring out along the way. Because I think that is such a strong characteristic of somebody that's able to be like, you know what, I don't care if people see me as maybe like fumbling and failing and whatnot, but like, at least I'm saying yes to my dreams. Like, that's pretty powerful. So.
Yeah, and also that's how you build confidence. I think that people, like, there's a whole ecosystem and ether out there about building self-confidence. How do you build self-confidence? How do you do this? And the truth is, the hard truth really is, the only way to get more confident is to see yourself succeeding and to have self-efficacy. And I talk about this in the book, right? The only way to even build self-efficacy is to know that you believe you can do something and then do something. And then see yourself doing something and then having a little mini success, a mini win. And then you're going to build a little bit more self-esteem and self-confidence. And then you do it again. And then you do a little thing again and again. And those accumulate. And that's how people begin to feel like they can, is when you see yourself. You can and you will when you see that you can and you will. There's no magic pill, Erica. Like, there's no like, here's a blueprint. You do this, and you'll have self-confidence and have the self-efficacy. You just have to, like, what you were saying earlier is 100% accurate, which is like, if you say to yourself, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk today, and then you actually follow through with that 10-minute walk. And that's like, wow, you know what? I accomplished that. I said I was going to do it. I did it. I accomplished that. I'm proud of myself. What's the next thing that I said I'm going to do? And then keep on going. Next thing you know, you're building your self-confidence. You're building your bold. That's how you become bold. I mean, you become bold, you become confident when you are doing these bold moves, these little promises to yourself that you see wins with. So that's what I have to say about that.
I think honestly, that would change people's lives by just doing that. Like, if you say you're going to do something, if you say you wanted to lose some weight or get fit this year, okay, what actions do you need to take to do that? And what little things are you going to do every day to make that count towards that goal? Right? That's it. Like, just,
it's pretty simple. You know what it is? It's called follow through. Yeah. And I think people don't have a lot of it. And when you see people who have a lot, who are good at follow through, it's impressive. And it's really like you make note of it, right? Like, to me, I'm a big follow through person in life, right? Like, if I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something, Erica, I'm going to do it. I don't just talk to hear myself talk. And because I really harness follow through, because I don't like when people tell me something and then they don't follow through. Yeah. Can you imagine when you tell yourself something and then you don't follow through on yourself? Like, how that's so disheartening and so destructive to your overall well-being of self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So true. And that's like one of my cornerstones, like, is being accountable with your word and, keeping your word. So 100%. I love that you say rejection is better than regret. I think we need to crystallize that, because I think so many of us hold back from the thing that we want because we're so fearful of what if they don't say yes. Like, I remember, I get this question all the time. I'm sure you get this question. How did you get that guest on? You know what? I asked. I know. Asked. So and that's what's funny about it, because it is sometimes that simple, but there is a way to ask. And I know you could attest to this, and there's a way to ask, there's a way to be respectful, there's a way to care, to genuinely get a yes. So
what was what I'll tell you about that in a second. I'm curious. What is the one guest that you've had that people have asked you the most of, like, how did you get that guest on?
Ooh, I'm trying to think back.
Now I'm interviewing you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's been so many, so I want to think of a specific one. But I got Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., and he's the son of Don Miguel Ruiz, which wrote the Four Agreements. So the whole family, I had both the brothers on because the father doesn't do podcast interviews anymore. But that's a pretty big guess, because that book is one of the best-selling books of all time. I also got Gary Zukav on Seed of the Soul. So those are quite big guests. So they asked me, like, how did you get that guest on? And truly, I'm trying to think of another one. There's another big one that I just asked, and I can't remember the name, but it's simple as that.
But you asked. I mean, it's so funny because, a lot of times people try to overcomplicate things that are super simple. Like, before my book, I've been in the health and fitness space forever, for a long time. That was one of my, big pillars in career. And, I would tell people very simple thing. Like, I wrote a book called No Gym Required, which was about simple ways to lose weight and be healthier, and live a healthier life by not using a gym. And it was very much like things that actually worked, Like really, like it was, but it was basic things. There was no magic pill in there. And a lot of times, like people don't want things that are like, so like common sense sometimes isn't so common. People don't think that like the actual things that are like basic work. So they're always looking for this magic pill or this magic answer, you know, like the strongest, you know, the whole like strong is the new skinny, which was another book of mine, which was about not everybody could be skinny, but it could be strong. So focus on that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is it's like giving yourself goals that are actually attainable, that then you see yourself winning and being, that's how you also, like, that's about the confidence piece. But the reason why I'm bringing this up also is sometimes the things that work, the things that actually get you from point A to point B are so, you know them already. You know, they are very basic, simple things that you know instinctually work. But we don't give it any onus because it's not fancy with bells and lights and it's not magic. So we don't even like take them seriously. And then we buy into all of these other things that are like basically nonsense that don't even do anything. And we spend a lot of money and time and effort when really, if we kind of like look right in front of us and try these things that are really simple, that is within us, that we can do easily and very much like now or in an hour from now, we don't do them, you know, like it's interesting, like with weight loss, for example, right? Like sometimes it's as simple as, you know, eating less and moving more, right? Let's just call it that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yet people don't want to do that. So they buy every other diet scheme and this thing, and they go on this thing and they try that thing and this cleanse and that, when really like it's just basic. And so what my purpose in life, if I can do anything, impact anybody's, I want people to take real ownership of themselves and really like do these things that anybody has the capacity to do, and and practice it, because it's amazing how you can really improve by just doing these basic things. And in my book, everything is very actionable for that reason. I want everybody to take action. I have a workbook in there where everybody can like see themselves improving and getting better versus just talking from this white ivory tower.
Absolutely. I love that you have all these exercises in the book. It's really a powerful book in itself, just by the messages, obviously, you share in it, but the fact that, of course, it's an action-taking book. One of the things I love that you share, so well, obviously, you're big on habits and hustle. That's your podcast. That's really, I believe, the habits in our life is what make us be who we are. It's what forms our identity. It becomes a lifestyle, our habits and our rituals. So if you were to say some of your non-negotiable habits that you put into your life that you feel serve you the best in your pursuits, what would that be? Because I know you're a mom, you're an entrepreneur, you are wildly popular podcast host, like you have all the things. So I know you have certain habits that are your cornerstones in your life that help propel you into being successful in all areas.
Thank you. I think that, let me say that I think habits are what we do every day is who we are. And that's why it's very important for people to really develop really strong habits that they kind of help define who they want to be. One of the things that I think is so important and is exercise, and not to have a great ass and to like for vanity purposes, because that's actually not even what it is for me anyway at this point in my life. But the reason why exercise is so important is, number one, it is a microcosm for how you deal with everything else in life. Fitness for me taught me goal setting. It taught me discipline. It taught me how to be patient, because if you want a result, you have to wait and work for it. It doesn't happen overnight. And it taught me a foundation of how to get and be successful in everything else you're trying to do in life. But now, what it also does is exercise changes the neuroplasticity in your brain, because what it does is it changes the mood, it changes your focus, it makes you more alert, more productive. It gives you the happy, like endorphins, all of these things that get you to a place where you can be bold and you can live the life you actually want and go after the life you want. So exercise to me is a non-negotiable. I don't care what you do, but I think people should find something that they enjoy and that they can sweat, because they need to get themselves to a place where they can sweat. So to me, that in the morning, and when you do, also, I should say, the reason, another thing is when you exercise, I try to exercise in the morning first thing, because it's also a win. And when you basically have that early win, and like you see yourself accomplishing and doing a hard thing. So you want to front load your day with the hard stuff. So it gives you, it takes that, like, it gets your brain from not focusing on those things, right? So like, okay, now I've accomplished this hard thing. Now I can go accomplish other things. Plus it gives you energy to beget other things and be more productive, because energy begets energy. So that's the first thing. That's one of the things. I'm very much a person that I try to put a lot of things on autopilot that are just not important to me. You know, like, I'm not a big fashion person. I barely know how to, I wear, like, even to my book launch, I wear like a black tank top. And if I get dressed up, I'm wearing jeans, but mostly I wear gym clothes. Like, I just don't know a lot about the fashion stuff. And quite frankly, I don't care so much. So I don't want to worry about it. I want my brain capacity to be more available for other things that are more important. So I tend to wear the same few things. Like, I pick things that I know I like, and I wear that. So then I'm not focusing and spending a lot of energy and effort and time on clothes. And I call this in my book, actually, it's called the energy allocation theory, right? Like, you want to put energy where you need energy versus like use energy for places that are like, kind of not really that important to you. So pick and choose what's important to you, and then find places where you can autopilot certain things. So to me, that's one. So one of the things that I do is I put my breakfast on autopilot. I tend to eat the same couple things day in, day out, because I just don't want to think about it. I don't want my energy to be on like, what am I eating now? What am I going to eat for breakfast? Like, I want to eat something that's quality and like satiating and like gives me, my body nourishment, and then move on with my day. But I also want to eat something that doesn't like get me sluggish and then ruins my entire day. So eating something that's proper, right? So to me, like, these are like non-negotiables. Like, I'm very much a stickler for my morning routine. I won't take meetings or calls or podcasts until I get a couple of these wins that are really important to me, my non-negotiables, out of the way, so I can be much more productive and better throughout the rest of the day.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I realize anytime I neglect those things, for example, not working out in the morning first thing, it literally throws off my whole day. And so that's good information. If you notice you're more irritable and, you're not as productive, like, notice, okay, what are you not making sure you do in your days to fill up your cup? It's so critical. One of the things I love you talk about is the George Costanza effect. And I think this is really great to talk about, because I love this. I don't think a lot of people think of this, and it could be very useful for people pursuing things in their life,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. And by the way, I just want to, like, I was remiss in answering your question earlier about the rejection regret. So we'll get back to that after the George Costanza thing. But yeah, so I don't know who watched it, but I was a big Seinfeld watcher, and there was George Costanza, of course, is a character, and he was the character on the show that was very, like, he was kind of like a life loser, so to speak. And that's not my words. That's what, like, his character was. Like, he was very short, overweight, bald, lived with his parents, he couldn't keep a job. He couldn't keep a girlfriend. And he would always complain to Jerry, right? And so one episode or one day, he said to Jerry, like, what is going on? Why is my life like so, like, why can nothing ever go right for me? Like, why is nothing ever Like nothing ever works out. And so he decided that he was going to do do the opposite of what he normally does all the time. So he whatever he would normally do, he would literally do the opposite. So, and once he did that, everything turned around for him. Like he got the killer job with the Yankees. He got the beautiful girlfriend. He got everything started to like shift and change. And why I use that as the analogy is like, if you want things to change in your life, you cannot be doing the same thing that you always did and then expect to have a different result. So this is like kind of like a wake up call to people saying like, if you want something to change, do something different. So do the opposite of what you normally would do. So like if you're somebody who always says no when someone invites you out, or you don't want to go somewhere different because you like to do the same thing over and over again, this is your opportunity to change that and say yes when to everything, like you were saying at the beginning, like say yes versus saying no. Go to a different restaurant, try a different thing, like call the person that you were afraid to call, like do these things that would otherwise you would make you uncomfortable, you don't want to do. Become uncomfortable, like become uncomfortable. Put, like I said at the beginning, like put yourself in these places that you otherwise would feel uncomfortable to be. Go where you don't belong. Call the people that you otherwise wouldn't feel right doing. And like doing that, maybe your life will start to like change and shift and open up in ways that you never thought possible.
I completely agree. Okay, so going back to the rejection over regret.
Yes.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
going to say that.
it.
That to me, there's a whole thing about this. Like the rejection versus regret to me is personally, I feel I would love to, not like I love it, but rejection to me is so much easier than regret. Like I would rather be rejected than regret the what ifs in my life.
Yeah.
So I use that as a benchmark whenever I do anything. So like when you asked me earlier about like, how are you so bold, or how do you just go for it? And all of it is based around, I say in my head, like, how will I feel 10 years from now that if I didn't try it? Like, how would my life have been different if I actually did try that? Like, I don't want to live in the what ifs of the world, or what if I did that? Or should I have tried this? I'd rather try and then get the rejection, because yes, rejection, like it stings. No, don't kid yourself. It stings for a minute, maybe a day or a week, but it will go away eventually. You'll eventually get over whatever that rejection was. But the regret, you never get over, because that's like a missed opportunity. You never know what you don't know, and you never know what could have happened. That's gut wrenching to me. Like, what could have been, what if I did this? What if I went up to that person? What if I tried that? What if I emailed that person? What if I called that situation? I don't want to live on my deathbed thinking of like what my life could have been or should have been, because I was too afraid in a finite moment to go for something. And quite honestly, and I'm sure Erica, you would agree, like so many things that I tried for, or I mean, maybe you didn't, but like a lot of things I tried, I got rejected at. Like I've been rejected so many times in my life, I can't even count. But the point is, I don't even remember, right? Because it doesn't matter anymore. Like I tried. I got shut down. I got rejected. I got failed. It was miserable at the time. But you ask me now about what those things were, can't remember. Don't remember. Maybe I remember a few, but most of them, I don't have any idea.
Because you
But
carried on,
yeah, you carried on. But I'll tell you one thing I remember. I remember those things that I was too afraid to do and regret that I didn't try. Those still haunt me. Those haunt me every single day. And I think about those things quite often. Like, but the rejection, I mean, I don't care. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself, that one simple message is how to live a bold life. because if you live by that principle, that what
Mm-hmm.
is the worst that could happen? And maybe I'll get denied, maybe I'll get a no, or, it doesn't turn out the way I expect it to, but at least I tried. And now maybe I could be more resourceful and figure out another way I could approach this and whatnot. So that message alone, I think, is about living a bold life. And I mean, it's so
100%.
powerful. It's so powerful. And I hope that message really hits home for some people to really like, what am I not stepping into? What am I resisting or not doing because I'm afraid of that rejection? And so with that being said, if you were to say like somebody that really wants to step into their life that they want to live right now, this year, like this year is the year, right? Like as people always say, what would you say are like some of the first actions they should take, or habits, or whatever you want to say, principles that they should live by to really take their life to the next level and really achieve what they want?
Well, I think that if you feel resistance, that means something, and you should feel that and do something about it,
Mm.
and walk through that resistance. I also think that people should have like a come to Jesus moment with themselves and figure out for themselves where are they being bold in their life and where are they struggling with that. And why I say that is because I think a lot of times we can be bold in some areas and go for it in some areas, or feel more comfortable in some areas. But in other areas, we are more timid to act, to do, or to strive for because we're uncomfortable. So I think taking inventory of where you really are, and then in those blind spots or those places where you haven't really flourished, making that your priority, right? Like you might be a killer at work, professionally, you could be crushing it, but on your health, you've been sleeping, and not in a good way, but like really kind of like not really taking care of your health because you've been so dominant on the professional stuff. So if that's the case, be more bold with your health, be more bold with taking ownership of that, and creating ways for you to become much more healthy, right? I think that if you're somebody who is super, you take your health seriously, but your relationships stink, and you're in like really kind of like mediocre, and by the way, I shouldn't say mediocre, I would say like relationships that are not satisfying or not satiating and fulfilling, but you're just staying in them because it's comfortable. Maybe that's where you should be a little bit more bold, and
Mm.
have a conversation with your partner, and see where you guys can meet a place where you can be much more satisfied and happy, and open that up, and like be more open and honest with your partner, or ask someone out that you otherwise would feel uncomfortable because you were shy. Go after that person. Don't just go out with the first person who asks you out. Like there's areas in your life where you can see these pockets of like where maybe I need work. So what I would say is, moving into 2023, is you got to take that inventory. You got to see where the resistance is. You got to have an honest conversation with yourself and take a moment and have some self-awareness, and then act accordingly. Because if I were to say to you, everyone do this, but some people can be listening and be like, well, I'm actually really good in that area. Where I
Yeah.
really need is this, right? So it's different. It's not like a one size fits all, but it's something that people can that's what I would say, is like walk into the area where you are deficient and make an
And
improvement.
yeah, I love that. And I also think it's really powerful to walk into your fears. Like if you were really feeling fearful, let's say public speaking or starting your own podcast, being seen, like getting your voice out there, maybe that's exactly the thing you should step into and just like jump in and like see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, at least you learn something about yourself. Okay, maybe I'm not made to do this, or maybe I have to work on it more. And I think that's really powerful, is like get comfortable failing, because that's really the path to success. Is you got to fail a bunch of times before you succeed. Like it's really just like that's life. So
If I can say anything, I mean, we can sum this all up in one area, it's like
yeah.
get comfortable with failure. And this is what the book is about, right? So like how this whole thing even like became something, is that I did that TED talk that went viral about being bold. and people really resonated with it. And I created this whole concept, which was this 10% target, which is all about the pursuit of getting comfortable with failure. And so I say, make 10 attempts at whatever you want most in life. Like pick one thing, right? Because don't get overwhelmed by everything. Pick one thing and make 10 attempts at getting it. And like, you may not get to that goal, but I promise you another opportunity will open up by just going down that path. Because the problem is people are so scared of what happens if they fail. But if you could become desensitized and immune to failure, you can do it all. You can try all you want. You'll keep on. You'll fall. You'll try. You'll get right back up. You'll fall again. You'll get right back up, because it doesn't affect you the same way. It's like the more you fail, the better it is for you, because it just gives you that, like, you become immune to it, right? Like now it's like people always say to me, how did you just go and ask that person? Or how did you just go and do that? It's like, because like I've conditioned myself to not worry about the failing or the rejection, right? Or or the outcome. I don't care anymore. I'm so used to like not getting something or failing, where it's like, all right, it becomes like a volume game. Like, it's like, how much shit can you throw at the wall? Eventually something sticks. So you just go and do it over and over again. And it's like I said, it's like, this isn't rocket science. It's just about the ability to actually do it. That's what it is.
Yeah. And that, like you said, boldness is a skill that you just constantly work at and that you constantly take action on, and just like,
it's a muscle like anything else. And by the way, if you don't work on that, it atrophies. Like if you go to the gym and like if you want to get like really great legs and a great butt, and you work out, you do weights all the time, and you finally get it, and then you decide, okay, now I have it, I don't have to do anything anymore. Wrong. You have to continue. You got to maintain and be consistent, or else it atrophies. And then all that hard work goes nowhere. Like you lose it basically. So, right. So what I say to people is like, yeah, you have to work on being bold for life. Boldness is for life. You got to work on it, practice it. It's like a muscle. If you keep on having to do it, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, the stronger you get. And if you stop doing it, it will atrophy like every other muscle in your body.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's so much more I want to touch on, but I know I have to honor your time, of course. And I want people to grab this book. It is available everywhere. Bigger, Better, and Bolder. Live the life you want, not the life you get, by Jennifer Cohen. So good. And I know you probably already answered this, but I got to ask you my final question that I ask all guests, because it's a very important one and I need to hear your answer. So if you were to leave a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned along your journey that you just feel everybody needs to hear right now, which again, you've dropped so much, but if you were to say one powerful message that you just feel really on your heart, that the piece of wisdom everybody needs to know, what would that be?
I would say, I honestly, I did touch it, but I said, I was going to say, chase the life you want. Don't just take the life you get. And I think that to me sums up everything, right? Life isn't here. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. So chase what it is and not just take what you get.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And you are a perfect example of that. When everybody reads this book, this amazing, amazing book, you'll see all the things she has experienced in life. Not all the things, obviously, but all the things you touch on in this book are really powerful stories that will give a glimpse on that boldness that you exude and that you live in your everyday life. And so everybody go follow Jen Cohen if you haven't already. Of course, her podcast, Habits and Hustle. And yeah, I just thank you for all the goodness. What I love so much about you is you're just truly authentic, and you just show up real, you're ready to serve, and you just welcome people in your space. So thank you for everything you are and all the value you're bringing into the world.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate that. If I can, the one quality or the one thing that's super important to me is authenticity and being real. And like, cutting away from all the garbage and bullshit. To me, it's like so unnecessary. And I wish if more people did that, it would just be a happier place in life, honestly.
Yep. Yep. Thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.